For our final HTTP verb, we're going to run a delete command as an API endpoint so we can clean up our data in our database. Now, this video is part of a series dedicated to developing C# applications on Linux. We're almost done wrapping up our API before we move on to our front end of this project, but this is a project that teaches us how to build cross-platform apps and understand how they work on various platforms. Now, if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel to stay tuned when new episodes come out of this course. And if you want to support this channel even more, you can go to iamtimcorey.com and pick out a course that can help you get to the next level in your career. I got courses on .NET, C#, SQL, AI training, API training, and a whole lot more that will help you take that next step in your career, and it helps support more free content like this. All right, let's jump over to Linux. And in here, we have our ticket service. Let's go to our program.cs. We just modified our put command. So let's now add a delete command. This should be pretty straightforward. app.mapDelete. And we're going to say /API/tickets. And then we need to do the ID:int. Because we're not going to create a model for this, we're just going to pass it in on the URL. And then we're going to say async. And actually, let's just put this on a new line right away because that's what's going to need. So async task results, no content, and validation problem. And SQL data access, SQL. And int ID. And again, we'll put this on the new line as well. And tab it in one more and do our arrow. And then our curly braces. And then semicolon. And let's move all this to match the other, which is right back in the beginning. It's up to you if you want to do that or not, if you want to have the beginning or in one. Okay. I'm going to say await SQL save data async and dbo.sp tickets _ delete. And we're going to say new and say ID equals ID and the ticket DB. Now, this is really kind of my bad here. And this is kind of up to us how we're going to address this. If we address this, I think we're going to address this. In our SQL Server, we have our delete command. The parameter, notice is uppercase ID. But notice with our get, the parameter is lowercase. And the benefit there was that when we passed it in, we just passed in the ID because it matched the casing of our parameter. But either we do that for both cases or we do it for neither, because the other thing is it doesn't match when we pass in, let's say, insert, nope, not insert, update. There we go. Parameters, uppercase ID, because that's what matches the database. So it really probably should be that this get is uppercase, not lowercase. So that's script as alter. There we go. And let's change this to be ID like so. And then let's run this or execute this actually. And there we go. So we don't need to save it. But now if we refresh this parameters, it's ID with a capital I. That does mean that when we come back to our program.cs that we should say ID equals ID in order to get that mapping to work properly in our get command. Okay, so now these two match in how they work. And then again, we're going to return typed results dot no content. Hit save. So that should be it. Now again, we can go back and forth on what should be returned from a delete command. Should you return the record, which seems like no, because you deleted it. Should you return the ID? Well, you pass it in, so you don't need to. I think no content is the way to go here, but it's up to you. So the one thing we're also not doing, and that's something that I'd probably put in a full API, is we're not checking to see if the record doesn't exist. We're just passing back a no content every time. But if the record doesn't exist to delete, then we might want to return a 404, not found. So it's up to us how you want to do that. That can, in certain circumstances, leak data but if you're already able to run a delete command, I don't think that's really leaking that much data. So with that being said, that's our delete. Let's go over to, we'll make sure, yes, our database is running. So we can run our application now. And then what we'll do is we'll delete those new records. There's no reason to have all of them. Maybe we'll keep one. But what we'll do first is we will run just the get and see what records we have. So we have 1, 2, 3. We'll leave those alone. 107, 109, and 110. So let's go ahead and delete 1007, 1010. So let's come down here to our delete and say 1007, execute. We get a 204, and then 1010, execute, 204. Let's just delete 1011, which doesn't exist. And it says 204. So it doesn't give us any kind of message saying, hey, you can't do that, or that wasn't done. But now we have 1, 2, 3, and 1009. That's it. So it does work properly for a delete as well. So now we have our API pretty much set. Now, again, this is a super simple application. Don't read into this that if you have 5 tables, you do this 5 times. That's not how this works. It all depends on your setup. And again, I'd probably add more endpoints if I was going to make this a full working application. But we're getting the basics of this application in place. So again, the reason I would probably do more endpoints is because this put is doing a lot of work. Like you're updating the entire record every time when you could probably do them a few patches. But otherwise, the API is done and ready, which means that next up what we'll do is we'll start working on the front end on the web. So we'll be calling this API, and notice we're kind of making each job easy. So Dapper makes this super easy to do data access. It's just call a store procedure and pass the data in. Done. And then the API now will make it super simple. We just say, hey, this ticket ID, go ahead and delete it. This ticket, look it up. Give me all the tickets, etc. So we're making things really easy for the next step in the process every time. Next up, what we'll do is we'll work on the front end where we'll create pages for, viewing all the records and then taking one record and modifying it, etc. So with that, we're done for this lesson. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.